I'm not exactly sure what I've gotten myself into tackling putting a body kit on the car, but I'm hoping that this body kit from Kaminari is gonna require minimum modifications for install. So we're about to find out, but right now this box just came in, so see exactly what we're looking at. Pretty excited actually. All right, here's what I got, and I'm impressed. The first step, obviously, is to get the car up, and it is easiest to take the wheels off, but I haven't done that yet. There is a Phillips right here, a 10 mil right here, a 10 mil back here, and a 10 mil inside, which you just take everything apart, of course, and it's right behind the seat belt. And that nut is on a long, there's a little long extension, so when you loosen it, it doesn't just fall down. Once you loosen it and you take the wrench off of it, then you use the magnet to pull it out. Then there are a couple snaps in here that have to be undone. This does have to come out first. And this has one snap down here, and that's how that comes off. All right, first mock-up here. That's roughly how it's supposed to go, although it's not fitting on all the way. Gonna have to drill a hole through here, and otherwise just relieve all the areas where it's hanging up. I guess we'll start. Here we go. All right, I've been at it for a while, and here's what I did. So this one required a lot of relieving under here to get it to just move in far enough. There's some sanding that had to happen here, as well as on the inside to get it to drop low enough. The goal is to get this line as close as possible. And if I'm being super picky, which I'm gonna end up being, I wanna move this back about well, maybe a millimeter, but to move the whole thing back, I have to relieve a little bit of material here, and that'll allow this whole thing to move back a little bit. There's no A to B to C process. It's just a matter of putting it on, seeing where the touch point is, relieving that touch point, taking it off, doing that over and over, back and forth, finding which touch points need to be trimmed down. The door actually closes pretty well on this side, so that's nice. The inside of this whole area has to be trimmed down so it doesn't contact that. And as it turns out, I didn't have to relieve that much on this side right here, but it's looking pretty good. A lot of work. Now I realize what putting a body kit on a car is all about. It sure takes a lot of work. And even though it's a really high quality product, I feel, there's still so much fine tuning that has to be done to it to get it to fit. But I guess the difference is that when you get a high quality product, it's worth doing the modifications, the fitment, because the end product's gonna be so nice. But the process is definitely involved. All right, so this might be my favorite piece of the whole kit, and I'm gonna see what it's gonna take to get it fitted. My guess is that it's not gonna need a whole lot of modification, so hopefully that's the case, but we're gonna start by taking the trim pieces off, test fit this, and see how it looks. Well, I think I've figured out that this is gonna be harder than I thought. What's making it harder is that I think the bumper has to come off in order to get it to fit. But once it's kind of shoved in, you can see it hits the Burke exhaust right there. And then over on this side, it's so far away. And when we push it up, it hits the exhaust on this side and it just doesn't fit. But we're gonna pull the bumper off and hopefully get it to fit, because it does look sick. This is the main part, so we have to make it fit. I have no idea what the actual process is, so I'm just gonna have to try attaching it directly and then hope that it fits to the car and make adjustments from there. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna mate these two and see how it works. So there's this movie from the late 80s, early 90s called BMX Bandits. Being a child of the 90s, and being a cyclist and loving BMX and all that, I love that movie. But there's a line in that movie where the BMX bandits, the BMX riders are being chased by the bad guys, and they fall into this grave, and the line is, well, I think we're in the poo now. And I think that applies to me right now. I think I'm in the poo now. This is getting more and more involved at every step. So now I'm going to remove the exhaust, cut this tin off. So that's the strategy, and we're gonna start cutting this off. All right, here's the step we're at. The bumper is upside down so that I could lay the new piece on it. Looks like it's gonna line up really nicely. All the ends and gaps are pretty close. I have all these little wood clamps holding it all together. And then I've marked the holes that need to be drilled. So I'm gonna drill those now. Okay, we have everything mated together with some plastic fasteners just to mock it up. Let's see how this goes. I think we're on track. I know it's going to be a challenge to create enough space for the muffler, but I'll tackle that here in a little bit. We're getting closer, but the bottom of the piece hits the Burke boxes, so I'm having to relieve a section. Hopefully the next attempt is one that fits. All right, I've been sanding on this thing for a couple hours now, trying to get it to clear the muffler tips. I'm gonna have to go to plan B, which plan B is gonna be to just cut away and reshape the whole thing to give that exhaust tip clearance. So we've made some progress. I'm getting it kind of fastened down. Super dirty, of course, but everything's lined up nicely. These are the fasteners I'm using under here. Nice big washers on the bottom. So that's what those look like. Of course, I cut this big piece out to clear both boxes. cut a huge piece out from each side here. And this side is not touching, but it's probably gonna burn the paint. This side is not technically touching, but it's definitely gonna burn the paint once it's all on. And then cut these two holes out here. And right now they're just some bolts that are dropped down, but I'll catch those with a nut and tighten that up. Hopefully it'll close this gap a little bit, but it's gonna look nice and tight. So I just threw the lip on just to test fit, and so far, pretty happy with it. There's a little gap here, but that will get drawn up. This isn't gonna be perfect, but I think when it's all tight, it's gonna be fine. Over here, this needs to come this towards the back, but that'll probably align this too a little, so that's cool. And for now, I just have a bunch of clamps holding it up. So I just need to mark the holes and drill the holes and decide what kind of fasteners I'm gonna use for this. I feel like I'm gonna end up having to drill other holes because there isn't a whole lot of material, especially back here where it counts. It doesn't really come out far enough to meet the existing hole, but we'll make it work. The conflicting black molding stripe. Some people like it, other people do not like it at all, but in this case with the yellow car, I felt like with the body kit going on, I needed to paint the black strip so it doesn't break it all up, it just looks more solid. And this is the process. So step number one is using a pry tool like this to start the molding detaching. So you start wedging and lightly pulling, and just with some force, push it all the way down. After that, step number two is to use the same tool and just come through and accumulate as much volume of the sticky stuff as possible and just pick it off, and then it'll leave this layer that you really can't do much else with. That's where this tool comes into play, an eraser wheel, and it just kind of erases. It makes some dust, so it has to be cleaned up. And then the final step is the old Goo Gone, and that'll take the rest of the residue off, of course, with the rag. And then I came through with some just some regular alcohol and cleaned it all up. Well, it's been many hours of work later and several days since my last clip, but I'm finally at the point where everything's ready to send off to paint. So here's the kit. All the holes are drilled. This piece was a big cutout that I had to do for the muffler to clear, or the muffler tips, and they are barely gonna clear. The front lip, I had to relieve some material here. Hopefully that'll cinch down nicely and be even with the lines. Side skirts, ended up cutting out these spaces for jack stands or for lift blocks. And of course, here's my attempt to make an autopista wing fit, and it's far from good, but I guess the idea is that it's looks good from far. But ended up molding it to the base, and really this should be called an autopista crap wing because it was so misshapen, and just even with all the cutting and grinding, it still is not going to fit very nice. It's going to have kind of a high gap here once it's on the car. Hopefully it'll just buy me some time until I can find a nicer one. Oh, and to mount the rear diffuser piece, this was my solution. Have these two bolts that are just hanging down through the existing mounting point, but put some two-part glue to hold those steady. Hopefully that's a good solution. Also, drilled some holes here in case once everything is on, I need to reach in there and maybe hold them or something. I don't know if that's necessary or not, but that's where we're at. And hopefully the next clip is of these getting painted or getting mounted, already having been painted. Yay! I'm not gonna end up using this Autopista wing. I've worked on it a bunch, tried to make it look good, but it's not gonna be a long-term solution. It's not worth painting and adding to the body kit that we're working on. So that's why this box is here. Let's see what it looks like. This is sweet. Alright, so it's definitely been a process of back and forth to figure out the right shade for this stuff, but it's finally done and it looks awesome. Freddie at Southern Powder Coating here in Benton, Tennessee really did an awesome job on both my wheels that he powder coated and the painting of these panels, but finally picking it up and going to take it home and get the car built back up. And yeah, here's what we're looking at. So can't wait to get this stuff on. It's gonna be sweet. Back at the house and pulling everything out of the van and starting to fit it up. Back here, this is kind of looking complete. Unfortunately, well, looks like it's not actually touching the exhaust tip. On this side it might. Maybe not. Got the front lip on and it looks pretty good. There's a major gap that was here and I was able to take that away with 3 zip ties. The Caminari kit, this lip is not perfect. This part needs to be a little wider, but anyway, maybe it's my bumper. This never got painted, so I'm gonna touch that up. But all right, here we go. Let's see how this looks. Well, it looks great. It really does. And man, it definitely, obviously, so worth the effort. So worth it. But would I do it again? No way. No way. All the video I took and these videos I posted don't even scratch the surface and don't represent well the process that it really took, how much work it took, how involved it was, how tedious, but the end result is great. Like I said, it's worth it, but one and done. That's my first and last for installing a body kit, but definitely enjoying it now. Looks super cool.